The making of a world champion. At just 9 years old, Magnus Carlsen showed the world that he was a chess prodigy. His incredible talent and strategic thinking were already evident at such a young age. Magnus's ability to see several moves ahead and anticipate his opponent's strategies was truly remarkable. He quickly became known as a chess genius, leaving seasoned players in awe of his skills. Magnus's passion for the game was unmatched, spending hours studying and practicing to perfect his craft. His dedication and hard work paid off as he went on to become one of the greatest chess players in history. Magnus Carlsen's journey from a 9-year-old prodigy to a world champion is truly inspiring. So here we present to you a game he played at age 9 against Jostein Thorsen at the Norwegian Championship for Juniors. We will tell you more about young Magnus after the game. Now watch the play of a young genius. Carlsen was white and started out pawn to d4. Thorsen responded with pawn to d5. White continued pawn to c4. The Queen's Gambit. White is trying to exchange his wing pawn for one of Black's center pawns. If this is accomplished, then White will proceed to dominate the center with his king's pawn to e4. Black continued with d times c, accepting the gambit pawn. Carlsen then developed his queen's knight to c3, bolstering his hold on the center as well as stopping Black's forward c pawn from being able to advance. The standard rule of thumb in any chess opening is to try to control the board's center as well as to activate your minor pieces to give them more scope. Pieces in the center tend to have more potential moves, which therefore give you a greater potential of finding good play with them. Black continues with pawn to g6. Preparing to fianchetto his dark squared bishop to g7, giving it more range along the a1 to h8 diagonal. Engine analysis, however, doesn't give this move very high hopes at this time. Better would be knight to f6. Developing the knight and contesting White's grab at the center. Carlsen does exactly as expected and claims the center as his own with pawn to e4. Now Thorsen plays knight to c6. Fighting for the center d4 square. White maintains his hold on the center with knight to f3. Defending his d-pawn as well as developing yet another minor piece. Thorsen finally completes his fianchetto with bishop to g7. Bearing yet another attacker on the d4 pawn as well as laying claim to the long diagonal. Magnus pushes the d-pawn now, eliminating the 3-piece attack on his d-pawn as well as putting the question to the knight. Black defends the knight by knight to e5. Moving the knight a second time and indicating the end of the opening and entry into the middle game. The move also adds a defender to his c-pawn, though historically it's not usually a good idea to try to hang on to this pawn. Magnus take the knight, removing the defender of c4 as well as a forwarded posted threat. Thorsen takes back with bishop, capturing the knight on e5. White recovers his lost point as well as opens his kingside for castling with the move bishop takes c4. Thorsen makes a somewhat questionable move by now taking the knight on c3 with his bishop. It is usually considered a weakening move to give up a fianchettoed bishop, since doing so will now leave Black's kingside vulnerable should he decide to castle there in the future. The king's shield will have been compromised, especially since White still has a dark squared bishop. But what's done is done. So White is in check now. To recover the lost points and to eliminate the check, White takes the bishop with b times c. Black plays pawn to c5. All but daring Magnus to capture un passant, which would allow Black to trade queens, reducing the potential of a mating net on the now weakened king's shield on the kingside. Magnus of course simply ignored this and castled, tucking his king behind his still intact pawn shield. Black continues with knight to f6. Attacking the e-pawn and potentially seeking action on the g4 square. White simply pushes the threatened e-pawn and now puts another question to one of Black's developed pieces. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the phrase putting the question to a piece, it simply means that your move is basically saying to your opponent, okay, what are you going to do? So Black moves the knight to g4, ending the threat momentarily as well as threatening White's e-pawn. This allows Magnus to activate his kingside rook now to a semi-opened file and defend the e-pawn in the process. White is far better developed in this position. Now Thorsen gets his queen involved in the fray and plays queen to c7. defending the c-pawn and placing another attacker on white's advanced e-pawn. Probably not black's best decision due to what will happen next. Carlsen played pawn to d6, forking both black's queen as well as black's e-pawn in front of the king. The move also frees white's bishop for further activity against black's kingside. Should black take the pawn with e takes d, then white would capture e takes d as well with check, and black would lose his queen. So Thorsen tried to sidestep the difficulty with queen to d7. This is about to get ugly for black. Magnus plays e6 now. Black had very little choice and captured f times e. Despite the fact that now, with the e6 push, black's knight on g4 was hanging, which Magnus then took. Queen times g4. Thorsen captured the dangerous d-pawn, but the entire scenario looks very precarious for black, with three attackers bearing down on the e-pawn with both black's king and queen far too close to the junction. Carlsen strikes with bishop captures e6, threatening both an attack directly on black's queen yet again as well as indirectly with a discovered check if the bishop moves from white's rook. Thorsen is in serious trouble and tries to limit his all but unavoidable losses with queen to e7. Now white cannot move his bishop without black's queen taking the undefended rook on e1, resulting in white being checkmated himself. Magnus ends this potential with the simple bishop to g5. Not only threatening black's queen again but now also defending his e1 rook with the a1 rook. All of his pieces are being coordinated perfectly while black's are completely out of the game. Black again tries to end this sequence and takes white's bishop with bishop times e6, eliminating any discovery and attacking white's queen in return. This fails though to rook takes e6, pinning the queen and forcing black to take the rook to try to recover some of his points. There is very little hope here for black, however. Still, as a great chess player once said, no game is ever won by resigning. Thorsen valiantly played on with queen takes e6. Carlsen captured the queen, queen takes e6. Check. Thorsen makes a last-ditch effort to avoid the inevitable and plays king to f8, walking into the final blow from bishop to h6. Checkmate. Just 1 year after this match, Carlsen finished in the top 10 for European and World Youth Chess Championships in the under-14 sections. He received 3 IM norms that year and by the age of 12 achieved the title of International Master. Here are a few more chess videos for you. Thanks for watching our videos. Please subscribe, ring the bell, share and keep playing.